All the grapes in the world that are used to make wine legally in Europe, such as your Chardonnay and your Cabernet Sauvignon, they're actually the same species. They're called Vitis vinifera, and that is your wine fact of the week. Hello, welcome to episode 1 of The Student with Wine Glasses. Today we're going to learn about how to taste a wine professionally, that is, you done systematically, so that way you can go out and impress your friends, impress your family members. Now, to start to taste the wine systematically, what you need is actually a reference guide. So what I have here is my old notebook for wine. That has about probably 400 recordings in there. So these are all the wines I've tasted. What I do is I write down their name, their origins, their years, and put in some pamphlets that from their wineries, helping you remind their wine, and then tell me about characters and how I like them. Now this way you know what you have done, what you like, what you don't like, and what you want to try in the future. The next thing, aside from having a good wine notebook, is actually it's very good for starter people to have something like this. Now this is a wine cheat sheet. What it does have, it is a lot of description character for different variety flavors. For example, under fruity, you can see blackberry, blackcurrant, blueberry, gooseberry, grapey, mulberry, muscat, raspberry, strawberry. So these are some of the fruity flavor you can have. And under microbiology flavors such as baked bread, butter, butterscotch, yeast. So that's very convenient. And it really helps you when you want to find the right word to describe what you taste instead of trying to figure out from a dictionary. And then the last thing you want to have, which is extremely useful, even though a lot of people are intimidated by the size of this book, is actually not that bad. What it does have is a few pages about all the regions of wine regions. For example, here we have, what is this region here? Somewhere in France, I don't know, Loire here, here's the Loire region. And then we have Languedoc-Roussillon, or Pays-de-Lyonnais, and that's the Bordeaux region. If you switch further back, you can see Italy or other areas in such as Spain, Germany, even Australia, New Zealand, North America, and South America. And that's a very good point to start. So to taste wine, what I'm going to tell you is the ISG way, which is known as the International Sommelier Guild. This way, it allows us to taste wine in a more systematic and more scientific approach. Of course, when you write your wine note, you don't want to be too scientific, because after all, wine tasting is an art. So there are 3 major components that should appear on every single good wine tasting sheet. Is first of all the color, second of all the nose, which is what you smell, third of all the palate, that's what you taste. So starting with the color, you want to see first of all the difference between the core of the wine and the ring of the wine, because often the difference can tell you a huge story about, first of all, the age, second of all, the density, such as tannin structure, and you look at some fuzziness stuff around the age, that will also tell you a tannin structure as well. And those are very important things to watch out for. And also, aside from the color, you want to notice the intensity of a color. Is it deep, or is it deeper, or is it even very, very dark, like inky-like stuff? So for white wine, you can range from watery white, pale straw, a little bit of green tinge on there, and go to straw, golden, amber, yellow, or even such as copperish. It's often used as well. Now for red wine, what you can often start is pink, garnet, ruby, purple, deep purple, and also all these things can be combined to its different intensities. Now, inky is the last word you want to use. So that's the color part. And next we want to talk about is your nose. So to smell a wine is to actually know the flavor of wine. Most of the wine tasting, in terms of blind tasting, is actually done by knowing the flavor of a wine through your nose, because your nose is responsible for about 90% of the flavor you taste in everything, food, be it food or McDonald's. And that's very important to smell a wine. Now, you want to find a good glass. A glass with a very small opening on the top that allows you to smell better. That way the flavor from the wine is focused to one point and it comes to your nose. And to start smelling a wine, you don't want to just put your nose in a glass. That way you might be overwhelmed by some of the major dominant flavor in your bottle of wine and then miss out on some of the more delicate, more fine and soft flavors. So what you want to do is slowly put your glass away from you with the wine in there, and then get closer to your nose. As you move closer, you start smelling wine better. Now you want to stop at where you start smelling the wine really definitely and really has a good definition. And that will tell you the intensity of your nose. So for example, if I stop here, let's say I can smell it really good here, I don't need to get any further to get more definitions, I say this is a very high intensity wine. Now if I go over here, that's about medium intensity. If I put my nose in the glass, that's low intensity. Often, however, these kind of intensity stuff does not tell you how good a wine is. For example, a young Bordeaux or a very young Napa Valley Cab might take a long time to open up. And having no nose on the nose, having no nose when you smell it at low intensity doesn't mean that the wine is badly made. It just means it's not the time to open the bottle yet, or you need to take a rest for a little bit for the bottle. And next, we have the palate. The palate divides into several different components for tasting. First of all, you want to see the sweetness level. Sweetness level of wine is indicated the residual sugar in a bottle of wine. For example, you can go from dry, a little bit of dry, semi-sweet, or sweet, and dessert wine like sweet, or ice wine sweet, which is actually much more sweet. And then next thing you want to look at, aside from the dryness level, is actually the body of the wine. Now, how does it feel? Does it feel watery light, like water? Or does it feel chewy, thick, and overpowering your palate? So that can tell you the body of the wine. And then you want to know the intensity of the flavor of the wine. So is a wine really intense on flavor? The fruit just jump to you and punch you in the face? Or is the wine kind of subtle and soft, but it's there? Or is it just disappear really fast? So speaking of disappearing, you can also talk about finish of a wine. For example, a wine can be a very long finish. That's after you spit it out, you see how long the flavor lasts in your mouth. That's called finish. Or very short finish, or a medium finish. And after all these, you can talk about tannin structure of the wine. Tannin structure is what you taste often in the red wine. That's coming from the skin, the pulp, the pomace, and also the stalk, the oak barrel. That's mostly where tannin comes from. So some white wine do have tannin, and I have only encountered a few examples in my wine tasting career, so don't worry about it most of the time for white wine. And what's very important is acidity. Now, acidity brings you the backbone structure like tannin. It's part of the backbone of a wine. So what it does is lift your palate, lift the flavor, you lift the sensation to a different level with a good acidity. However, if just high acidity will kind of offset what you want to taste in your palate, because a wine with high acidity is no good, just like vinegar, right? But a wine with no acidity is boring, is damped, it's just meh, it's flat. That's why we call it. So aside from that, that's most of what you want to say for the structure. Then you go on to the flavor profile. So to decide what flavor profile you want to use, it's very important to start from the fruit structure. So for fruit structure, divide into your white wine fruit, such as melon, peach, apple, lemon, lime, citrusy, or even a little bit of flowery fruit, such as some people say jasmine, violet, and your white flower on the field. That's often used for a lot of wine. And then also there's a green part such as bell pepper or asparagus, or even some kind of herbs can be used here as well. And then for red wine, the fruit are often divided to pink fruit or dark fruit, or in between. Now, dark fruit traditionally will be your blackberry, your cassis, your blackcurrant, which is blackcurrant, and your deep sweet sour cherry, or your light cherry, stuff like that. And then your pink fruit such as your strawberry, raspberry, those kind of things. And your intermediate fruit will be something like a plum, which is kind of intermediate in between. Even though some people do say plum belongs to the dark fruit side, yeah. Now, aside from the fruity part, you can also look at the spice part of a wine. So does the wine have lavender, which is actually seen a lot in a lot of Rhone wine? And does it have a little bit of savory spice? Does it have a basil kind of feel? Or does it have rosemary, which is also seen a lot in Shiraz related wine? Or does it have graphite component on it? That's very important as well for Cabernet Sauvignon. Or you can talk about the terroir of the wine. Now, to understand the terroir of wine is probably the last level of wine tasting that you want to talk about. It's basically such as the minerality, the slate soil, the heaviness of a wine, indicating a more clay soil, or the lightness of a wine, which indicating more of the slate, schist, loam, or limestone soil components, they all taste kind of differently. And to really grasp terroir, you really have to have a good understanding of vineyard, wine structure, and also winemaking process, and a great varietal. And that's the basic study of wine tasting. The most important part of wine tasting is to say whether I like it or not. And the study has shown that despite what you think about flavor profile and also on, because people with different experience can taste dramatically different flavor profile, we all tend to agree whether the wine is good or bad. So there's a very clear situation when it comes to a bad wine. We just all hate it. Right? So the good wine will always show you harmony and balance and strengths, or maybe delicacy, and that's the indication of a good wine. To taste wine, aside from writing good tasting notes, is actually to start with the right glassware. Now, the basic minimum glassware of wine you need to have is what I have here. First of all, this is a white wine glass. A white wine glass is seen because the opening on top is compared to the bottom is very wide, in relative speaking. So that just allows the aromas to get away from your nose, because a lot of white wine has very, very strong aromas that are so seductive. However, when they get too strong, you might get a little repulsive. And next thing you want to have is a red wine glass. Now, this red wine glass I have is a Pinot Noir glass. How do I know it's Pinot Noir glass? It's very simple. Pinot Noir glass has the best curve in any wine glass in the world. You can see there's just a curve like this, just like Pinot Noir, which is more of a feminist and more of a female character grape with delicacy, softness, and some bright strawberry, raspberry fruit. This has a good curve, and that just tells you it's Pinot Noir. It's a woman, right? And the good thing about Pinot Noir is that it allows a good exposure area for air contact down at the bottom, so that way the flavor delicacy goes into the glass, and the glass has a tighter constrictor on top, so that way things don't escape from your nose. A Pinot Noir glass is often a very good glass to have for Shiraz as well. For some of the old world Shiraz, not Australian Shiraz, those are really crazy. But I would say the best glass in the world and the most multi-purpose glass in the world is this glass here. This is your sommelier tasting glass. It's used in any kind of tasting event, even for scotch and wine. What it does is, first of all, you don't have to pour a lot of wine down the bottom to fill the glass. And that way you can get a flavor out, and a very tight constrictor on top will let you smell it really nicely. So this is my favorite glass, the sommelier glass. Now please move on to part 2, where I'll talk about the wine tasting results of today.